Oh, go ahead. Oh, yes.
How many people, how many members have you got?
We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, we've got quorum.
Okay.
And Ms. Boyd said she was not gonna be able to be here, so we have quorum.
Just barely.
Yeah. All right. Mr. Klein, will you provide us with the invitation, please, sir?
Absolutely. Heavenly Father, thank you for a wonderful weekend, the rain and the sun and everything in between. Lord, we thank you for the positions you've gotten us to on this commission and this committee. We've worked really hard to do right by your people and by you in this budget. The hearings we've had the last couple of weeks, and this will be an extension to some degree to those. We ask that you grant us wisdom through your Holy Spirit, and that all things will come for the betterment of your desires. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, recognition of the public. We have a few speakers here. Commissioner Janone.
Thank you, Mary Janone, 1100 Boxwood Road. I'm here to speak actually on two things. I didn't put it down. One was on the allocation for the funding for the courthouse, downtown courthouse, the new one. The citizens paid over $100 million for that beautiful building, taxpayer money, and I understand why it was done. I was not a commissioner at the time, and the previous commission approved it, and they started building it. We did lose a project manager kind of towards the end, and we had a project manager who was not, in my opinion, qualified to do that. So I had a little pause when I heard that the money was being withdrawn to finish the courthouse, because to me that is like building a house and not finishing it and saying your house is finished, the builder's done. So that to me was preposterous. So I also know that there was comments made that the money would go to public safety, and that if you don't understand the justice system, that is part of the public safety system. And there is a lot of backlog, I can tell you that, because one of my cases I have been waiting to do has been almost 4 months getting in the works, and well, it's longer than that, because there's a backlog. And I know that from the conversations with the courthouse judges and needing to get this finished, I know the state allocated the new judge for the position, and we didn't tell them no, go away. We went ahead and agreed to that. So I feel it's kind of a disservice to the citizens not to finish the courthouse as said. And we also had the finance department and the folks up there have worked very hard to get this going, and General Ops, the architect that was given was willing to pay, took 27% discount. It was at $85,000 to do the plans from front to back, take all responsibility, and use the plans that are in place at this time. And you're not going to find really an architect that would be willing to do that, because it's a different group of people that did it, and they would have to take on the responsibility. So I think you're doing yourself a disservice by not finishing out as said, moving forward with it, get it done, and give the people what they paid for, because you're not doing that. The other thing, and I don't know if this is on the agenda, I didn't have a piece of paper to look at to see if it's on there, but it has to do with the archive building and the geothermal and the heating and cooling system. There was a comment made, I believe it was the mayor, said that they're not doing that anymore. I'd like to say that that is not true. My husband has patents on geothermal, and they still are using geothermal to this day. There are people that do that work. You have to look for them, and that is a better cost to savings with geothermal, because your use of energy is less, and you save money. A lot of our schools have geothermal. So I'd like you, number one, to reconsider the $2 million. We actually agreed to that. The commission agreed to that, but I'd like you to reconsider and put that back where it needed to go. And I also would like you to think about using geothermal at the archives building and get somebody qualified to fix it, because it's a simple, not simple, if you don't know anything about geothermal, it's kind of rocket science. But I would like you to rethink that and maybe bring that back and figure out a better way. Not reinvent the wheel and just pull everything off the building and do something different. But, one other thing that bothers me is that I heard from and it's probably rumor, that there's people that don't want that done because it's a political move. And I find that disheartening. I think that we need to do what's best for the community and for the county and finish the project. I don't like to spend money. I am not one to spend a lot of dough. But you're not going to complete a building if you're stupid. And it really is. Do I have more time?
You're actually out, but if you want to finish, ma'am.
I just finished my sentence.
Go ahead.
But I think that we need to really think about what that decision will do and need to really reconsider. That's what I.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kevin Baker.
Kevin Baker, 424 E.B. Wade Road. I certainly appreciate the additional funding for the pauper burial. Hopefully after this next budget, I'm not going to fall into that category though, of needing it. I do support the $2,500 for the Brown House. I do think that money already has been allocated by Mr. Brown and we need to move that project ahead. But you know me, I always look at more esoteric things. The $60,000 for a talent search for a new financial director, it seems a little high. Typically, I know in my past professional life, 10 to 20% of an annual salary was a typical search fee. So I know we're paying somewhere around $200,000. You know, so $60,000 is a little high. But the other thing that as I put my ear to the wall, it sounds as if some people have already decided who they want. So why would we earmark $60,000 to go for a talent search? I'm just saying, just don't arbitrarily spend that money. If people are already behind the scenes lobbying for a certain person or certain groups are saying that they've already got somebody picked, if you're going to do a search and spend the money wisely. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Judge Gay.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is D. Gay. I have the honor of serving God and serving the people of Sumner County as criminal court judge, and I've done that for 18 years. And I told Gen Ops last Monday that after sitting through many sessions of the committee meetings, watching you all, I'd rather be in criminal court. And believe me, I feel for you. I want to talk about the build out. Things kind of changed last week. On Monday, we went before Gen Ops and $85,000 contract for architect work and design was approved. And then on Friday, we found out that his committee wanted to punt it for a year. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about that. I've got one recommendation to make to you. You know, we're on the same team and we serve the public. We need to work together here on the same field. And I don't want to overlook that fact, but we've got the architect approved. Why, if you want to stop, why don't we go ahead and go through with the architect and lock in on the price, and why, so we don't have to wait another 8 months. It took 8 months to arrive at an architect while we've been doing the best we can to work through trial courts. It's hard to serve the public when you're compromised a little bit, and I would like to suggest that option. Secondly, I want to talk to you a little bit. A lot's been mentioned about convenience and inconvenience. Don't you think it's inconvenient for a judge not to have a courtroom? Can we agree on that? Now, I have taken the jury assembly room, and it doesn't matter who the judge is. It doesn't matter to me if it's Judge Nichols. We all do the same job. And we are compromising the criminal justice system. We've got constitutional issues, and you all talk about the Constitution. Well, wait till you go to criminal court and see how it works. It's amazing. We live and breathe the Constitution every day, every case. And we've got constitutional issues. We got safety issues. The courtroom that I'm using now is just one big room, assembly room with chairs. There's no wall between the public and the defendant and the attorneys and the judge. We really struggle. Last week, I was in 3 different courtrooms. Had a child sex abuse jury trial for 3 days. Commissioner Pomeroy was the foreman. He was in 2 different courtrooms on different days. We all have to struggle to get things together for our daily dockets. The public suffers because we've got one criminal court on the 5th floor and another criminal court on the 1st floor. Defendants get lost. We issue arrest warrants when they're not in court. And sometimes they're in the other courtroom. And we have to work through that. It's a situation where we got a potential courtrooms right next to each other, but now we got one on the 5th floor and now we got one on the 1st floor. And it takes time when we could work together and do things better when we're next to each other. We've got lawyers that complain. We've got everybody complaining about that gap there. And it kind of hinders what we do. You know, I know you're waiting for sales tax revenues to come up, and maybe that's something we can consider here. I don't know, but you voted to use the money, and we have come to rely on it, and we've waited 8 months, and now we're at this point. I want you to know that the 2-judge situation has helped. In jury trials, I had a backlog before we had another trial judge of a year to a year and a half of jury trials. During the time period that Judge Nichols has been there, we have improved 4.5 times more than that period of time the year before. So we're working to make things meet. We just need some help and consideration to get it done so we can work. And I can't thank you enough.
Thank you, sir. Okay, that concludes recognition of the public. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve minutes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. My report, I typically don't have much in my report, but I have one thing this time. We've had 2 people speak on it. So I'm going to be more blunt and less kind than our speakers. I know very well that the reason that we have, that this committee, me being the only person that voted against it, or at least the genesis, I don't know how the reason for every individual's voting, but I do know that the genesis of pulling our funds from this courthouse, funds that were already appropriated for by the entire commission, funds that are driving a project which is currently under works, a project that if we should pull that took 8 months, which we just heard, and I can verify as fact, to get started, and that if we should pull, these funds, we will have to cancel that. Obviously killing that, but also jeopardizing not only a future timeline and costing more money, but additionally, risking reputational harm to us as a business entity. I wouldn't want to do business with somebody who said, yeah, this is gonna happen, and then pulled something at the last minute. And we're doing all of this, and I'm gonna call it a spade here, man. We're doing all this because we don't like a judge. We don't like how that judge came to us. And this is the typical good old boy nonsense that I personally ran against, and I'm not gonna do anything. If we wanna vote against it, I'm just one vote, that's fine, but I'm not gonna be somebody who stands here and just lets it fly under the radar without calling it out for exactly what it is, because that is exactly what it is. So here's the thing, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion, and I don't care if it fails. I'm gonna make a motion to appropriate $100,000 so that we can continue this.
This is what I was gonna say, it's already appropriated. My office has been
Go
working
ahead,
on it
go
for
ahead.
several months. You've got the architectural, you've got the construction appropriated. We went back to the architect that designed the courthouse. They no longer wanted to work with the county, so we've been hunting for an architect that will use the existing designs. And, you know, generally it's based on a percentage of design, construction, and would remove the portion for the design and charge that fee. That's what Ms. Ganung was talking about. We had a quote. The quote was down in the mayor's office. We were waiting on the quote. When the quote comes back, the architect was gonna take that, create a contract, and then we were gonna give a PO for the contract and then ask the mayor to sign it. What happened was on the budget committee, now we understand that the actual funding's been cut. So right now, the mayor, because the funding's potentially gonna be cut, does not want to sign the quote.
Well, so what I want to make a motion for is to provide $100,000 for such that.
It's already appropriated, we just need the mayor's signature to move forward.
But if he's not comfortable with it, I want to send because he's not comfortable with it because we pulled this funding. I want to send so the money's already appropriated, I want to make a motion guaranteeing that these funds that $100,000, up to $100,000, which I know that more than covers it, will be available for this effort so as to allow the county mayor to make a
Let me be
signature.
clear. Gen Office approved it, correct? We took it, we sent it down to the mayor for
Yeah.
a quote. It's down in his office. There's an appropriation. If the mayor, as your agent, signs the quote, we get a contract before the end of the year, and we get a PO, there's no need for a second appropriation. There's an existing appropriation. At this point, that's where we're at. I mean, there's no additional
Well,
appropriation
it's
that's
true,
already
because
there.
at the end of the day, this didn't get all the way through.
It's in your budget.
It's in the budget.
There's
It's in this
$2 million
year's budget.
in the budget.
So it has to go all the way through. I mean, that's true.
So right now, the thing is, we have prepared it, the thing, as the agent for the county, statutorily, and you can ask the county attorney if I'm wrong, the county is the mayor is the general agent for the county. So we need him to be the one to sign the contracts.
So
and
is there
sign the
any,
book.
so then can we not have let me ask this then for both.
You can do a resolution to ask the mayor to sign it for the county commission.
To ask, I would then, and I'll do it this way. I'm gonna make a motion for a resolution directing the county mayor to sign this, given that there is already an appropriation for it. That's my motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Becker?
Can you refresh my memory when this political move, what was it last Thursday or the two that I was at?
Last
Last
Thursday.
Thursday.
That was the
Okay.
very end.
Okay,
Or
so
you weren't- I don't think
I
you
wasn't
were
here
there.
Thursday, so I'm trying, I haven't
Well,
had
it
a
was the
chance.
second time. So this happened, there were two votes on this.
Mhm.
The first time it failed, there was a motion,
The previous
the
Thursday.
previous Thursday,
Yeah,
to pull it, that motion failed. It came up again, as a new motion, because it was a new agenda,
mhm.
and that time it passed. So that's how it happened. You were not there, Mr. Becker.
Okay, thanks for that info, thanks.
Let me be clear, I will have to do line item adjustments under your authority, but the amount is already approved.
That's fine. Any other discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay, we have one no. All right, motion carries. Report of the county mayor is not here. Report of the Finance Director, go ahead, Mr. Long.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first item is actually a small presentation on PowerPoint, and everybody should, on their packet, have a copy of the slides. A couple of things to say, all your slides are numbered. The PowerPoint is only going to cover three things. One, it's going to cover how your property taxes are working between your capital projects and your debt service fund in the long term, where you're currently at on your budget, and what items you have left to finish your budget this year. Each one of these three sections has a big page at the end that has questions and a question mark on the end. The slides are meant to run sequential, so it'd probably work best to have your questions at that point. I'm going to try to go very slow, go backward and forward on several of the slides just to see where I'm getting, the way you can see where I'm getting the numbers. Before we even start looking at the property tax, the first thing we need to consider, turn this on, is your rate. The understanding right now, the budget's built on 1.421, which is $1.42.1. What that means is you got 142.1 pennies, okay? To come up with your total property tax based on whichever funds you're looking at, you're just simply going to multiply them by the rate. If it's a fund other than schools, you're going to use this 1.1 some odd million dollars here, and for the education funds, it's 1.1 odd million dollars here. If you recall from the very first budget meeting, before you did your first hearings, I requested that you move all property tax out of the debt service fund. And me and Mr. Schoaf's talked about this a lot. Your debt service fund has a balance that is too large. The reason it's too large is because you guys as a county, you issue bonds. If David buys one of those bonds, by and large, those interest earnings are tax exempt. The county comes back and it buys taxable investments with those cash. So if on average your yield, on the cash that you're investing versus what you're paying out is more, then you have to rebate that amount to the United States Treasury through the IRS. When the debt service comes into play, if it is a qualified debt service, which means there's certain qualifications, then you don't have to account for interest in your debt service. Your balance is too large, so it's not a qualified debt service, so we have to account for those. What that does is put you at a risk to have to rebate more interest to the IRS. So let's move on forward.
And that's what arbitrage is.
Arbitrage is the difference between the two earnings, between taxable and non-taxable. This is all the taxes in the county that are local. It doesn't count grants or anything else. I put you some nice little red arrows to make them easy to see. These are all the taxes that are affected by your property tax levy. The total will be set by your $1.42.1. Each individual distribution will be determined by distribution. Before we move on, we need to remember a couple of things. A couple of months ago, you sent the school department this revenue estimate here, so they're expecting that amount of your levy. And the other item is your Highway Public Works. Your Highway Public Works fund, you have to budget the 5-year average or you're going to lose part of your gas taxes. That's two things to remember before we move on. Is everybody following so far?
So that 140 has already been sent, correct? That's the
140 million has been sent on over to the Department of Education as an estimate. This is your debt service fund. At the end of this year, we conservatively estimate you're going to have $37.3 million. Where that needs to be is between $10 and $12 million. So what did you do this year? We moved all the property tax to decrease the fund. Basically, you removed the property tax, so it created a $12.7 million imbalance. If you look back to the prior slide, one thing you can say, that's still going to leave you $24 million. You could do that 2 years, but you can't do it long term because you're existing to debt. You have 11 years of basically equal amortization schedule. So you're need to come up with that $12 million because that $12 million is the difference between your estimated revenues and your appropriations. So that's $12 million a year when you have equal debt. Well, we also need to look at the revenue side of that equation. On your revenue side, by and large, I'm not concerned, but I am concerned about this. If you notice, you have $4.7 million worth of revenue earnings this year for interest earnings, correct? It's on page number 9, and I'll slow down. If you look back in 2021, you had about $937,000, and in 22, you had about $335,000. Well, there's two things in play, and most of them here know. The interest rates and the earnings right now are significantly higher than average, so we can't bank on those for 11 years. You have something else in play. If you all remember, we've been spending out $37.5 million worth of ARPA funds very slowly. The last ARPA funds will be spent out at December 31st, 2026. So you've also got all this excess cash. So when we start going to the next, I'm going to do a very simple little calculation here of what you're going to need in the debt service. It doesn't account for growth, but it's going to take a couple of things into account. The first is change in your debt service fund, and everybody recalls that from about 2 pages back, the 12.7. Does anybody need me to go back and show you? Okay. This 4.7, if we back up just one slide, that is this interest right here. So we're going to back that interest back out of your debt service. And then what I take that you can reasonably count on, and probably more than that, is I just took the average of those 2 years' earnings. That means not this year, coming year, or the next, but the next year you're gonna need to come up with $16.8 million. Where is the $16.8 million? It's clearly in your capital projects fund. This is your capital project fund's local funding over the last several years. Notice these 2 years in all comparison are huge. Last year, because we're shrinking debt service, and your most logical way to do it is move property tax over into capital, because you're gonna have future capital needs, and capital are one time. So we moved it over to capital, significant portions, $34.8 million. Everybody in this room can recall what you did with a big portion of that. $19.5 million is given to your highway department to be spent over to the next 3 to 4 years. $4 million this year, $5 million next year. So if we take this $36 million, these are reoccurring pennies. So to do another small little calculation, we just go to the next page. That's your $36,247,000. Does everybody see that?
Yeah.
We come back here at this top, that's your $36,247,000 for, does everybody see that? That's your current year funding.
Yeah.
This is on the original budget. This is just amounts that I took off of this table right here of some of your more normalized expenditures. I randomly chose some of them that if you average it out over time, other than bond issuances, should cover your capital projects based on history. So I came back and provided you 4 scenarios. We take the total, minus different amounts of capital, and minus the very conservative estimate of what you're gonna have to have back in debt service. That leaves these number here. What these numbers represent are reoccurring property tax revenues. These funds can be used for many purposes. Number one, your operating funds are under inflationary pressure, you have new programs. You can allocate them into operating funds because they're forever. You can put them up here to do more capital. You can take them and you can put them back into debt service to issue more debt. It has multiple purposes. The only thing that really restricts these pennies is a couple of things. One, it has to be allowable expenditure for your government.
Has to be what?
Has to be an allowable expenditure for your government.
Okay.
And the other issue based on where you levy it. So for instance, if you levy those pennies in the highway department, you couldn't use them for the schools. You levy them in the general fund, you can't use them for the highway department. So where you levy them and how much you levy is really gonna determine. And I would 100% recommend not decreasing your levy. You're on huge inflationary pressures and growth pressures. Come over here, and what happened on the last meetings, 4 cents was moved over into the general fund because of all this inflation and growth. So you've got all this growth, which has been said many times, don't pay for itself because of a reason. It's called inflation. So when you look at that, it brings your number down to the $31 million. Come through the same scenario. So let's just use any one of the 3 scenarios. And let's just run with the 31. Say you want to leave $7.3 million a year, make your debt service fund whole. You're still going to have $7.5 million you could do other purposes with. The same thing, these are forever pennies, as long as you leave your levy. It can be used for operational funds, can be used for more capital, can be used for issuance of debt, any allowable purpose you levy it for.
Can we break here just one quick? This is why.
Well, there's a question slide right after.
Okay.
And then you come in here, and I know that's not how it looks, so this is just one possibility. I know that it's not gonna be all smooth like these scenarios. These are comparative purposes, and then we're over here does anybody have any questions?
It's not a question, it's a comment. I want to go back, please, to 2 slides back. One forward.
One forward?
One forward.
This is where you're currently at, right there.
Yeah, right here. So, looking at these bottom numbers, I'd be interested in kind of how you built out the scenario. That's okay, we don't have to go into that detail, because I know we've got a lot to talk about.
I can go back and show you real quick.
That's okay, we don't need to do it. But at the end of the day, this is how we are building the long-term roadmap and projecting when when you come under pressure for potential need for additional revenue. That bottom line tells you, given different scenarios, what your flex looks like. And this is why, I know, look, I'm gonna support it now. I lost that vote. This is why I was really wanting to push for 3 pennies being moved over as opposed to 4, because I wanted to extend that roadmap. 4 is not gonna break us. That's okay. But just as we're moving forward year over year, it's important to understand that, yes, we're running at a surplus right now, and we're running at a reasonable surplus, but per Mr. Lawing's notes, we're also under a lot of pressure on the expense side. I don't think that any of the requests that, even the ones we cut, that the sheriff's department or the EMS, which was driving the majority of the increase, they're probably, when you start comparing them apples to apples with, per capita services, they're not unreasonable. So the philosophy I have taken in working with Mr. Lawing here, and I hope it's one that's shared, is to build a predictable, understandable revenue and expense cycle, so that we don't ever again, a 2008 scenario notwithstanding, but that we don't ever again, get smacked in the face with either this commission or the next commission or the next commission after that, get smacked in the face with, oh my goodness, we have to have a tax increase. At least we can look ahead and communicate, here's how far our roadmap goes, here's how much surplus we have in recurring, and let's be reasonable with our departments and not expect them to go on just maintenance of effort forever, but let's also be fair and reasonable to Mr. Hyde's good points the last meeting, that, if the average householder is growing by 3% and we're gonna still grow by 7 or 8%, keep that in mind too. That's our job. So anyway, I'll get off my wheelhouse here.
Let me say section 2 will cover this a little more detail where you're at, but does everybody understand the general concepts right now? You have 2 things playing. You have a debt service fund you're trying to drain. You're predominantly putting in capital, but your capital has more money than you need over time, and you have other needs, but after a couple of years, you're going to have to plug the hole in your capital. The money is there to plug your hole, but until that time, the best use is 2, 1, to fix for inflation and other needs you have, and number 2, to give you additional capital for the future. Is anybody missing before we move on to the
one question that doesn't seem to be registering me is, we have a general fund that can be used for recurring.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a capital fund that is a one-time.
Mm-hmm.
How do those two?
It is the source of your levy. So just like I said earlier, when there's 2 things that limit, and there's other things, but 2 things that really limit these funds here. Number 1 has to be a allowable expense for the government. Number 2, where you levy it. If you levy it into a capital project funds, it has to be used for capital-like items. Otherwise, what you're going to be doing is taxing your citizens for one purpose and using it for another. And there's been court cases and everything else involving that. We're not allowed to do that. So in other words, you can't levy it over here into this capital and say my general fund's short and I want to use it. The only time you really have that option is when you levy the taxes and build your budget.
Let me say it a simpler way. And not that you don't say it simple, but you've got it, this in and out. The simple way to think about it, if you go all the way back to the I think the second slide when you showed the total pennies, all the way back. Keep going.
Now per penny? 142.
142. You're
142.1 pennies.
142.1 pennies. That's your big bucket.
Okay.
This is your
Right,
big
here's your
bucket.
bucket.
Those are your, if you want to think of it in terms of a business, that is your gross revenue.
Okay.
You can levy it to any of these other buckets. So to answer your question,
You mean levy it from
I can
the
levy
budget?
it from this. I can levy it from the 1.42, the 142 pennies. I can levy those pennies to capital. I can levy those pennies to, in any year, I can levy those pennies to the general fund, to your question. And I can change those levies in different years. I can move them up and down with there are constraints on that. I can levy them as a general rule kind of wherever I want. However, I have to maintain maintenance of effort. For the highway fund, it's a 5-year moving average. For the schools, it is the last year, right? So there are different rules about where I levy them, right? So once I have a gross revenue of a 5-year moving average for the highway, I must always meet that. But how I get to it, as long as I meet that, I can levy the pennies however I see fit. Does that make sense?
This is your short answer, David. This is your levy. Once you put it there,
Then you can't.
versus here at the beginning of the year, once you put anything in the levy here, has to be used for capital. So if you come in and you want to change that, now when you're building your budget's the time to do that. So you can decrease the levy in the capital and move it to the general fund. Once you put it in the levy and you tax these citizens out here, you have to use it for the purpose in the levy. So if your question is why is the limit, I think your question deeper is why is there a limitation on these funds can only be used for capital?
Right.
It's because you, as a county commission, levied them here versus as general fund usages. That's the only reason it's restricted.
But it's not determined by where you get the revenue from.
Yes, it comes from, yes, it is,
Oh, it
yes.
does.
It's based on when you levy, or you're gonna tax your citizens $1.42.
Yeah,
These are the purposes you're taxing them. If you tax them for this capital purpose, you have to use them for a capital purpose. If you tax them for the general fund, something allowed, debt service, debt service. Once you approve this right here and you start collecting those taxes, that determines what those can be used for.
Just a quick note. You do that your question has two answers. Once, and actually has some caveats, but the simplest answer is during the budgetary process, you can, to your question, it doesn't matter where they come from, right? They all come from that 1.421.
right.
However, to David's point, once you put them in one of those buckets, you can't move them anymore, because to his point, what you're saying to the beggars, I am taxing you 36 pennies for this reason. And then you're in the middle of the year like, oh, well, no, I'm gonna move that over.
Maybe we shouldn't say a bucket, maybe this is clear for David. There is 5 buckets. That 142 is broken in these pieces, so look at it as 5 levies. Once you put it in that bucket, it ain't coming out of that bucket unless you use it for the purpose for the
When
bucket.
did we put it in these
You
buckets?
put it in the
Every
buckets
year
every
when you
year.
do the tax levy,
We're doing
that
it right now.
resolution.
We're doing it right
When we
now.
set the tax rate every year.
You
Yeah.
set a bucket.
We also do the levy of how that's split.
Of the percentages for those 5
Correct.
buckets.
So you don't have one bucket, let's just be clear, we're saying $1.42, once you set your tax rate, you have 5 individual buckets. You have to use them for allowable purpose within that bucket.
Okay.
Does that clear it up
Yeah,
for you?
yeah, yeah.
So right now, if everybody else is clear on the concepts, we're gonna go into where you're at right now. This, let's go forward up to several slides, I backed you up. This is where you're at now, and the first thing we're gonna do is I've got a small disclaimer on here, and I'm gonna explain it to you. And I sent it on the original email when I sent it to all of you guys on the original and ladies, well, lady today, on the original email. We're not guaranteed this is here, and there's a very significant reason. You have more than the average number of large grants in the general fund. And let me explain how your grants are working. Anytime we do an encumbrance, we do a PO or a contract, we encumber the funds. When we encumber the funds, they show up as an appropriation. So if they were encumbered last year, they show as an appropriation, they come out of this beginning balance, okay? We have several grants. To match those up for you, we take your encumbrance or budgetary expenditures for their pass-throughs, and we match them to the revenues in the budget. If you remember, each year we come by and we have all these adjustments for things you haven't received. The reason for that is twofold. We're doing encumbrances and contracts. By and large, we can't claim for those grants until there's actual cash outlay. So we may show the expense this year and the revenue because it's a grant, but it may not show up for a couple of years. So that skews your numbers. The other thing is this whole group of funds right here are governmental funds. And it only means that's only important to you for one reason. Governmental funds are on modified accrual, which is really only important at this discussion for one thing. For revenues to be recognized, they have to meet 2 very significant criteria. Number 1, they have to be measurable. Well, if we have an invoice and a bill and a check, they're clearly measurable. The other one is they have to be available. They have to be available for general revenues, most within 30 days, and grants for 60 days. So you can see how the skew happens. We show these budgetary expenditure in year A. We go here and we actually pay it out in year C. And then over here in D, we get it so far in the year we can't claim it, so you have this mismatch. We adjust those every year, and we do an analysis on it that we don't show the commission because it's rather confusing, but we analyze all your budgetary disparities based on that. But that's something we disclaim, and that's very important to this entire discussion. Everybody get modified accrual? Okay. This fund is on full accrual. It's an internal service fund. It is your self-insurance fund. It's showing a $300 and some thousand usage. Do not think that's going to happen, and I'm going to explain to you why. There is several programs in that. You've got self-insured health, self-insured dental, on-the-job injury, which is in lieu of workers' comp, and self-insured liability. Your health and your dental, when I came here in 2009, was in a major deficit. And Mr. Schoss looked at it, it's got a lot of cash right now. The county bailed it out on cash twice. The agreement at the time the county agreed to bail it out, and I was here when that was already that way, was that this fund had to cover itself long-term, and there had to be a plan. Part of the plan was your dental and your health cost will be determined by an actuarial. They come from Blue Cross. They are super conservative. They always overshoot those. So those are significantly overshot, and I know, but that's our agreement with the county commission. Number two, for the on-the-job injury and liability, I take an actual trend. I come and discuss it with risk management, what they know is in the works, and then I discuss it with legal, what they know is in the work, and we come out with a reasonable estimate. I would be very safe to bet money with you that this fund's going to go the other way, and probably more than $1 million. So at this point, I don't think the committee has any action that they're going to need to take on self-insurance. These next two funds are your operational funds, and we'll discuss those on the following slides because there's a lot more discussion on what these numbers right here mean. It takes a lot more analysis. This is the capital projects fund we just discussed, and you notice it shows minus 873. Looks confusing because we're talking about all the additional capital. Well, there's two things you got to think about here. We were talking about local funding, correct? You also have bond proceeds, and you also have grants through there. A couple of years back, you issued a bond to build in the Resource Authority to build a transfer station. Your money for $10 million of that is in this balance right here, but we've got budget next year and it's appropriations to be spent, so it skews that number up, negative $10 million. Also, on your local, think about one. You have, after tonight, you have $15.5 million of funds left for the road superintendent, correct? You're budgeting $5 million above it up there, so if you take that $15 million in account, you're really picking up a significant amount plus this reserve of local capital. Your next one, debt service, we've already talked about that. That's a planned decrease. Everybody understands that one. This is your drug control fund. It only has drug control fines, seizures, other things of that nature. And it can only be used for drug enforcement or education. These are usually high. They're produced by the Sheriff's Department. We produce the revenue. But over time, this is self-funding. It's not really a concern for the committee. I don't think you have any concerns or need to look at it any deeper. This one is a concern, and we talked about it at the budget hearings, but I'll go into a little more detail since it's obvious about the red here now. If you recall, this has two revenue sources in it. One is a litigation tax that can only be used for courthouse and jail, renovation, construction, or maintenance. Or if there's excess, the county can use it for any other purpose, but there's no excess. The other one is actually a telephone commission from your inmates. Based on some federal regs coming down the pike, that was cut, we think, around $500,000. That created most of this. This number right here includes also to take care of a new item that was discussed tonight about the courtroom. Your new courthouse is in there. We do all the maintenance on it, so we don't have a good trend line on that yet. We just opened it the other year. So my point being is anything this is short over time will have to be covered by your general fund, but my recommendation as your finance director right now, we've got that number, is to leave this alone and do additional analysis on it in 2027 year when you do have some history.
Can you repeat the part about the inmate telephone?
The county, by resolutions years ago, put all the inmate telephone commissions to help upkeep the jail. The rate we're charging, our understanding is we're renegotiating the contract because federal regulation / law has came down that we're charging a rate that's too high. So we've lost around, we think, about $500,000.
Out of
revenue.
Out of how much? We've lost 500,000.
That would have been $1 million some dollars if we hadn't, in other words, we've lost most of your telephone commissions.
We lost-
Went from like almost 700,000 down to 200,000, I think, somewhere. That's just a guess. I can get you the exact number, Mr. Becker.
Okay, thank you.
And these two items here are your main operational funds, which has salaries, operations. So we need to do some additional analysis on those, and I will do those on the following slides. These are the items you really need to consider when you start doing some analytics on these two funds. And there's four parts, and two of them we're going to talk about now. Your actual fund balance trend, is it actually going up or actually going down over time versus your budgetary trends? Is it budgeted to go up or down in the delta, and what's causing your delta? And we're going to go through the deltas tonight. So after this slide, I'm going to go very slow, and there's going to be some graphing. So, and then on your long-term estimated revenue and expenditures, I'll mention those in section 3. So let's go over here, and this is very important. This is your budgeted usage. I put it in red because these are technically the amounts you're going to use. So what this number represents here is your estimated revenue minus appropriations, usage of $4 million, okay? If you look, this same year, it went up $1.3 million. Some very important things to note about this graph, because to start with, it looks very, there's no pattern here, but there's very significant patterns, and I can show them with you, but you have to walk steps with me. First, let's look at this guy right here. Notice it's got a very small upslant, correct? Mm-hmm. So you had this up and down pattern, you had this, but suddenly your fund balance started growing here, but there's a right from here to here started growing from that X. And I can explain to you exactly why. You've kept this amount of estimated budgetary usage, for a better word, but you're in a growth county where your population's grown, and you've been under inflation, correct? So your budgets have grown every year. So let's just do something. I know it's not realistic numbers, but it will show you what's happened much easier. We're going to say your budget's revenue and expenditures, $100 million here, $100 million over here, okay? Because of growth. We've kept this the same. Let's say we are very conservative on our revenue estimates, and over time, if the economy's been normal growth, which it has been, we'll bring in 102%. 2% of $100 million, $2 million. 2% of $200 million, $4 million. So you're going to have an accelerated growth pattern as long as you keep that flat. The other one, go back to your appropriation side, is also $100 million. We spend 97% at $100 million, $3 million left over. 97% at $2 million, $6 million left over. The $2 million revenue excess plus the 3 would be 5, and it would be 10, so it would accelerate this line. So that's when you keep this flat, you're in a growth county with inflation, it will cause a line to do this. This X here is for a very specific reason. Everybody remembers what happened in 2020. I came over here on Vietnam Vets and seen 3 cars from Hendersonville to Gallatin, went over here to Glenbrook and seen no cars because I drove around that day to see what was going on. Everybody was on panic mode. What we did was decrease expenditures for this period right in here. We decreased revenues. We received money from the feds and state. Well, a weird thing happened to Sumner County. Number one, a lot of people started shopping online, and we get those sales tax. Property tax wasn't affected. We're a growth county. And then it appears that a lot more people started shopping locally, and we actually bled some things in from Nashville. I know we got some tournaments that were usually held in Nashville, but they were held down in Sumner because we have a lake. There's some of the outdooring events. So we actually picked up revenues. So what we did was we slashed all these revenues, picked up revenues. So you got this huge acceleration. Well, about in here, where it started going a little less, everything started normalizing, but there was a push to stop growth. Was number one, so conservative revenues. Number two, everybody was having a lot of pressures on their salaries, so you had all this extra turnover, people couldn't get people to work. So you suddenly have all this extra money. Well, the push to stop growth didn't happen because of your sheer population growth. If anything, it's increased. You've got more building permits, you've got more revenues. So the effort was that direction, but it went the other direction. So when you come back in here, you look at this. Readjusted and reevaluated revenues and expenses, 1.3. This pattern, after reevaluated and adjusted for all this, is closer to this, with this being bigger. So one thing we can deduce from this really quickly is if you're anywhere from $4 million plus this one to about $5.3 million, you're probably in a normal economy going to break up or pick up some reserves. Everybody follow that right now? Well, let's go back a couple of slides. And I'm going to give you the number back to 16. This number's much lower, but we have to disclose some stuff. Remember when I talked about modified accrual? This number has significant amounts. We've got grants going in out. You've got the health department and you've got the SWIG. Everybody knows what the SWIG grant is?
Yeah.
It's the water line in Portland and Westmoreland. We think that's really had a skewing effect of about $3 million. We think that number in reality, if you took out those grants, are generally not run through the general fund, that's about $5 million. So when we slide back over here, what do we see? Make sure everybody's following me. Your $5 million is somewhere, less than those two together. So right now, my point being, with the money you've moved, if the economy's anywhere near normal, we think you'll pick up fund balance. Does everybody follow others? I can slow down on a particular concept at the end. Number two is your highway. I'm sorry.
Can you go back? Where are you saying the five? Go back like 2 paragraphs. What you just said. No.
Oh, okay. If you take here, this is where we say estimated revenue and expenditures. In other words, your estimated expenditures or appropriations was about $4 million more than your revenues, correct?
Okay.
Is what we planned, but your delta is this whole thing because you actually went up 1.3. So a delta is a variance from your budget or expected. Your expected is $5.3 million. That's with revenues adjusted here. So with a normal economy, with that $5 million, we think you're probably going to pick up a small amount of fund balance. If you have a recession, you may lose some, but look at this number, 41 million compared to these. You're in a point right now where ultra conservatism for 1 year does not necessarily have to hold true. That's my point. Does everybody follow on that? You've got strong reserves. What are reserves for? One-time expenditures or revenue shortfalls or emergencies.
But if we're, just to be clear, assuming a not even a normal year, but it's even a non-catastrophic year, we are very unlikely to be
barring a 2008-9,
yeah.
you are probably going to pick up
up
fund
reserves.
balance. If you have 8-9, you're not. This fund, because property taxes weren't significantly impacted, this fund you will probably not lose a noticeable amount of fund balance. Where you're going to hit the biggest hits is going to be in potentially your building permits, your sales tax, which are in 2 places: the schools and your capital projects right now. Your capital projects,
The capital projects can.
you can forego capital project. That's why I requested you move sales tax into capital projects, because capital construction is more variable than your amortization of debt. Your amortization of debt has no give. Your capital projects do. That's why I remember I requested to move all of the second half of the unincorporated into capital, away from debt service. Very specific reason. You have control somewhat over your capital. You have no control over debt you've already issued. So does that make sense where we're coming from? This I only show you for one reason. This is the last 5 years. These are the same. I only made that red because it's unassigned. We are looking at unassigned fund balance. I know most of you probably didn't notice what unassigned fund balance means. Is fund balance you can use for anything. When we go through, you have other fund balances. And I'm going to explain to those the other fund balances are restricted. It means they're restricted by constitutional, enabling legislation, contracts. They're restricted in some form. Legally, you guys can't get a hold of it. The other two may be committed or assigned by you as a board or the budget committee or the county commission. If you notice, they generally parallel. There's one big change here, and most of you probably know what that is. The county made a $10 million payment out of the hospital. It was out predominantly out of the hospital committed funds, which would be right there, to do the overpass from 386 to 109. We made a $10 million check out to DDOT to get that particular project in the works. Anybody have any minor questions here? Then we go over here, and this is the highway fund. If you look at this, this is very predictable. If you go back, it goes down, and it was very predictable. Notice what year we're looking at. COVID year again. 2 things happened in COVID year. They did some paving projects for some, I think, cities. They got a big reimbursement that went in there, and then that's the same COVID effect. You take it, it's rather flat. We have, this is their estimated fund balance, and notice it's getting closer. Notice there's a huge delta. You know what's causing most of that? Is unspent appropriations. Prior to Mr. Ellis's time, we had a significant issue of getting estimated expenditures versus budget. So we estimated all budgets to be spent, which will cause this huge delta. Here we've been working with Mr., and he's not been here long enough to really get into it, but we've been working with him some and getting a better estimate on those year-ending estimates. My recommendation is the finance department, even after I'm retired, keep working more with Mr. Ellis's department to get a better handle on unspent appropriations. But if you look at this and then we slide back to your highway fund, $1.14 million. Every year you've had that much budgeted. Reality, you probably won't use that much, and one of the reasons is you have the $5 million over in the capital projects fund. I do have a few concerns this year because he's got more state aid, and because of the effect of claiming it, and because of the effect of potential deferred revenues. This number here could be potentially off, but you should capture most of it up in here or a later year. But we don't want to make that a negative. Because the same effect we talked about earlier could be more significant on the highway because they've got more state aid for the next past year and the next couple of years. So I went the wrong direction. Let's go back to where we were at. Does anybody have any questions on this section? So that was the section I thought was the hardest, I'll be honest. The first one I thought was easier, okay. What you have left. Departments and agencies have to be notified of the hearings. Finance is going to be doing that between now and Friday. Okay, we all know that. We're going to come back and re-estimate your revenue and expenditures, and the reason that's very important on your next draft is you want to have your beginning fund balances as accurately as possible. I'm going to come back and reevaluate all your revenues and report to the committee on any major variances. And then you need to have a long-term planning workshop. You have one each year. You need to have a second set of hearing with county departments, but one thing to remember, between when we notify them and the second hearing, you have to give them 10 days to do another presentation to you. So you have to have at least a 10-day gap between when we notify them, say this coming Monday, till you have your next hearing. And then the first budget hearing with the Sumner County Board of Education, they should have your budget between now and June 1st. So what may work for the committee, you may want to think about is you could come in and do the second hearings, this first hearing, and long-term planning in one daytime meeting and grab them all at one time and spend some more time. I know last year you were rushed on the long-term planning. We've got those. We've been waiting for your first draft. We've got those interactive sheets I've created. You could even look at revenues. It's according to how much time you want to spend on it. I would recommend you spend at least 6 hours looking at those long-term planning sheets. I've developed them for you, but there's a lot of assumptions as a committee, voting members, you need to really look at. The next one is a second hearing with the school department. Remember, you have to give them 10 business days, all these are business days so far, but to give a second proposal if you deny their first one, so you're going to need a second if requested. So if you approve their budget, no second one. Then you come in, the first draft has to be published. What happens here is if you deny this third one, they have a right to the county commission directly, so we'll have to wait 10 more business days before we publish it. Well, once it's published, it's not 10 business days, it has to be at least, we'll forward on the county commission, but it has to be 10 business days before they consider it, so it pushes you forward. And then you have to have a public hearing the night of the commission, and then that's when the departments, including the school or whomever that's unhappy, has a chance to do a direct proposal to the county commission. One thing to remember, best if we have a budget by June 30 for everyone. Required to have a budget by August 31st. You don't have one by August 31st, you have to have special approval from the state. I've talked to the state before, my understanding is going to have to be something catastrophic before you get one. So everybody needs to, my recommendation, aim for a goal of June 30, know that your very last day is August 31st. Does anybody have any questions?
So at the end of the day, we need to set, the next step is that we need to set one, I think ideally one hearing end of first week, maybe second week of June, to catch all of the county departments' first post kind of appeal or presentation, and the schools.
Yes, sir. That's my point.
So we can try to set this now, or we can go back and forth on email.
The schools won't have it to you potentially until June 1st, so you may want long enough to digest it before you set it. So you
Well, I was
may want
going
to
to
set at
say
least the second
week.
Yes, sir.
So what is the second Thursday?
June 12th.
June 12th, 1 month from now. Does anybody have any problem with that date? And we can start at 9 a.m. I mean, we would need it. It would be another day.
My question is, if you want to do the connecting one with the education committee, then you may want to do like your hearing during the day.
We've done that.
And then in the evening,
in the
like
evening.
at three or four, do it with the education members last.
I mean, I can coordinate with the, well, I mean, Mr. Becker,
He's chair of education.
yeah, you're here, so what would be good with your committee?
So, I was just looking at my calendar for the 12th. What was your question?
So just like we typically do, there would be two kind of sessions here. In the morning, I think what Mr. Long is suggesting and I would agree with, we would do the county hearing, you know, let's say 9 to noon, and then 1 o'clock to 2, and then we could do another break, and then afternoon, we would have the joint hearing with the education, just like we did last year. I think, I don't remember the timing, but we're gonna have to have a joint meeting.
Yeah, we have a joint meeting every year.
Yeah.
But
We did
I don't
it.
recall it ever being during the
We
day.
did it on a Monday night.
Yeah,
We did it
it's always
Monday
been at
night.
9.
Or we can do it during, I mean, do you wanna do it on the evening of the 12th?
I'll have to look. I mean, I don't know if I'm available on the 12th, so. for
All right,
daily type of
here's,
meeting.
we can just, look, I can call these, we don't have to try to set it here. I'm gonna tentatively look hard at that week and the 11th or the 12th, if folks could let me know if they're not able to make those dates via email. Okay.
Item number B, Chairman, is everybody?
Is anybody, so, hey, first off, thank you for this presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Like this, I will probably ask to get these and put them up on, like, these are really good.
We can post.
We need to post.
We'll post this on just like the other one as an attachment for budget.
Yeah, well, I'll work with IT, or maybe just put it out on Facebook pages, but some of those graphs are just really, because this stuff gets really archaic and arcane, and even if you're in it all the time, you can kind of get confused, and you guys did a really good job. And I just, for any citizens out there who, bless them if they want to dive into it. I'm sure the Bagarts would enjoy delving into this on their own time, but anyway, it was really good work, and I appreciate it.
It was great
I
work.
hope it answered the big three questions that I've received from most of the committee members. Is everybody ready for me to move to item B?
Yes.
Longest item A ever on my agenda.
Do we need a 5-minute break or continue to mush? All right, continue. Go ahead.
Item number B is just the financial statement memos, basically stating that any commissioner or anybody that wishes to have a copy, we will provide one, but it will be posted on our website by the Monday of the county commission meeting. Item C is transfers, and item 1 is all the payroll items. They are transfers between line items. They're generally to do with.
All of C.
Motion to group and approve all of C.
Second.
All right, we have a second. I do, just because these are large numbers, I'm gonna support these, I've looked at them, but, Mr. Long, can you, I would ask that you give a little, just an overview of what's going on with EMS.
EMS, basically, they have a couple things. They have ALS, BLS, 12 and 24-hour shifts. Part of those large movements are between the ALS and BLS. We try to keep up with that in your paramedics and EMTs for tracking for their expense. The other one is they've had some vacancies and workloads, so they're moving money from salaries to overtime and part-time. But that's what all the changes are related to, basically normal operations.
Any other questions here? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. You're on 2.
Okay, and item number 2 is other interbudgetaries, and,
Oh, did you do all of C or all of C1?
All of C.
Okay, so you were on.
oh, you also got interbudgetaries? Thank you.
Interbudgetary.
Okay.
Was the second good with that? I'm
Yes.
good with it as a
Yes.
voting member. Okay. Did anybody, were there any people who voted on that who had any issue with that vote being including other
It was
interbudgetary?
all even transfers, right? There's no
Yes,
new money.
yes, sir. It is between non-salary line item and non-salary line item. $0 new dollars.
That's what I thought, but I wanted to make sure.
Mr. Long, go ahead.
We are on item number D, and let me explain that one. Mr. Ellis come to talk to me because of inflation. He's moving along really good because of the weather. He's paving. He said he may have to slow down the rest of the year because he was running out of money. My recommendation was for him to come forward to the budget committee because you're allocating the money over the next 3 or 4 years to get as many roads as possible done. So I recommended he come on over to the budget committee, request an additional million, and have it forwarded on to the county commission, make a request to use some of his money this year. Otherwise, he's gonna need to slow down and do more of the other things they do, such as they do several things, grass, everything else they do. But I think your push right now is to improve the road situation.
This
so
is the
I
money
recommend
that
it.
he's already been
Yes.
allocated.
That's out of his 19.5.
That's out of his, he's pulling it from that.
So I made the recommendation
So
to
the
move
motion
forward with
approved,
this.
seconded.
And this
Mr.
is,
Klein.
this is previous of, we talked about, was it 4 or 5 million?
3 so far. When I mentioned the 4, it's already baked in based on if you do this tonight.
But just to be clear, when we built out the 19 million, we estimated 5 million a year times 4 years.
Right, but
As a surge.
but we talked about, was it 3 or 4 million a week ago, or the
It was
previous week?
3, and he's asking for $1 million more to make 4, and then he's asking for $5 million next year.
So this million will get him
It's
through
$4 million this year.
$4 million this year, and that will get us through this year, and then asking for 5 next year.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but is this with the 4 million that we approved? Or
You approved
We
3.
approved 3.
We approved 3, okay.
This makes 4
This
million.
makes
Makes
4
4
million.
for this
For
year.
this year.
This year.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Item E is the Long Hollow Drainage Project, and basically what's
Wait,
happened
we don't
is,
need to, do we need to?
You need to
have
send
a
that on
sec-
to county commission.
Do we need to have a second, do we need to have a second reading on that? Probably.
yeah, you would need a second or you need to waive it.
Does
Just-
are you good with, waiving with a second
Oh,
reading?
absolutely.
Second was good with it. Any voting member have a problem? I'll go ahead and recast. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
May I
We're good to
ask
move
that
it.
we could put this particular item up on the screen to show how
Yeah,
we're
go
moving
ahead.
monies? So let's just go to the long and the short of this. We're doing the Long Hollow projects. We're moving, project management around. The county engineer's kind of taking the front lead, and he's working on the project. He wasn't aware that you cannot amend a project for something that's outside the scope. He went ahead and done it. We've started the work. There's nothing notorious, bad, or anything. He just did not understand the policy. Well, what that's resulted in, because it's ARPA funds and it has to follow federal procurement, we can't use ARPA funds. So what I'm asking you tonight is to, if you look at that transfer, to shift around the funds. But if you go down to, I'm gonna show you exactly how I'm asking you to shift the funds. Because basically all we're doing, and it will have to go to the commission because it's a between major categories, but we're just asking you to shift some funds around. It's on page number. Do you need the page number? Do you have
For some reason it wasn't letting me.
Gotcha. Go past the transfer sheet and right past there. There should be. Keep going. Keep going. Right there. Oh, sorry. Back it up if you can just a little bit. Okay. Back it up just a little bit.
I can't,
You can't control and scroll it. Just
not,
control.
well, it's not on my computer, it's on that.
Where's that mouse that was laying around? And give me that mouse and hit control when else. Hit control and pull the scroll back.
Oh,
Hit the control button and scroll.
I know, but you can't.
Okay, you
It's
can.
not on my computer.
We'll just scroll up and down, everybody. Go to the top. And show
Oh, I'm
that.
sorry.
There we go.
Never mind.
Okay. This is your total ARPA projects, okay? It's all the prior projects we've been discussing for several years now. You notice this is more than that, I'm gonna explain. You can use certain items for revenue replacement, but they can't be used for general and vice versa. So this is a good thing. It means we can reallocate more money into revenue replacement if we need to. So the minus and plus here is a good thing. This is additional amount that you funded into projects from your local capital. Because this error didn't meet the federal procurement, we can't use federal money, but what I'm asking you to do, and it's 50,000 some odd dollars, it's the change order, 50,000, I think, $325. So what I'm asking you to do is come in and decrease this by 50,325 here, and budget 50,325 here. Decrease this one by 50,325 here, and budget 50,325 there. So the county commission is going to be out of no money. It's local money, so it's no longer subject to federal procurement. Worst case scenario, we may have done something that was, for instance, when we bid it and we pulled something in outside the scope. This is a very complex project. Your county engineer spent many hours working on it. It's got many moving parts, and our only concern was the way it was written. When we talked to the ARPA, it appears these were outside the scope. You may make an argument they're in there, but the best thing for us to do is to fund it from local funding. So what I'm asking, come in and
I'm gonna, so here's,
Decrease,
I'm gonna.
increase,
I'm gonna
decrease,
make a-
increase.
I'm gonna make a motion to shift to the 50,325, but I wanna get in my own queue. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second, I wanna get in my own queue here. So
Okay.
my question is actually not about this 50,325, it's about the project writ large. You know, this project seems to be, it's beginning to give me a little bit of concern of scope creep. So, I guess I have a couple questions, and if we need to ask the engineer, that's fine, but what is our total expected cost for all phases of this, one? And where does the conceptually, kind of, where is the line between a drainage project to improve and mitigate against county-related risk versus private property improvement? That's the question I have here. Like, I want to mitigate it. One, I just want to understand the total scope of the project so that we don't just continue to go. And two, they're related, right? I mean, the line, the boundary of where this should end, in my view, is where we have mitigated water runoff related risk to county highways. And once that's done to some level of degree, anything above and beyond that is, you know, I don't think it's really, we start to get over into, you know, are we improving private property? And I realize that can be a gray line, but I really want to try to understand this. Go ahead, Mr.
Can I
Vaughn.
talk about the first part? When Mr. Sethers came by with the project, me and him talked some about your exact concern. We're prohibited from work on private property, but we are for stormwater. My understanding, talking with Josh, all the drainage off these are completely stormwater related to improve our roadways. So the water sitting on the property that's draining into our roads and causing issues. At the time, we actually, based on what Mr. Sethers told me, I had him to go talk to legal to make sure they were in agreement as far as stormwater versus, so that one, unless something's changed in the scope, we think we're okay. The other one is, that's something for the engineer, but I'm not sure, you'd have to ask, I'm not sure if they're prepared to talk about that.
Well, go ahead, Mr. Vaughn.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Sutton, I would just, I guess I've gotten the answer on that, my second question, which is, yes, I know that we're improving private property, but it is, so long as we are doing so with the intent and the necessity of preventing water runoff.
We're not improving the property, we're redirecting water out of the roadways. and
Well,
off the property.
Right.
We're not improving, we're just redirecting.
And there's easements secured, all that
As
stuff.
long as we're in, I'm fine, but I do still want to understand what the total, you know, what
Let's
our,
talk to him at the time.
the total cost that we're getting in here over the course of this entire project, all phases. I mean, do you have a ballpark?
Yes, sir. So I think this is phase one right here, and it's about $700,000. The remainder of the project, and the trouble with drainage projects, and I hear what you're saying about, you know, let's fix what's in the road. Is it right? But the way that drainage projects work is, unfortunately, you gotta go back, you gotta figure out where the problem is upstream and fix, you know, and get it fixed as well. And so what we're doing essentially is we're starting downstream, working our way up on this thing. And so phase one was about $700,000. I believe phase two is pretty extensive, and it's, for the budget request for the coming fiscal year, it's about $900,000 we have in there, give or take. So in total, it's about $1.6 million.
But we do believe we're gonna be done at phase two.
Yes, sir.
We do believe, so there's not gonna be a phase three, phase.
No,
I'm
sir, no.
assuming that, you know,
No, it culminates Commissioner Klein has been there with me before.
Okay.
There's a regional basin,
right.
that really big detention pond, if you remember. That's where that's essentially like the eventual terminus of this project. That's where we get that repaired and put back like we need it to be, and everything
So
downstream correctly.
that is the length of, so there is a specific length of ditch, if we want to call it
Yeah,
that. that's gonna be-
it's a creek. It's a T-dash creek.
Chairman
Yeah,
Schofield.
yeah.
I believe there wasn't initially two phases. I believe we bid as all as one project. It came back so expensive. It
Well,
was
that's
broken
what
into multiple
and
phases.
That's why,
So the scope didn't change, it's just broken because the
Well,
cost came in.
but I would be remiss if I didn't, you start looking at something like that, and a thing that starts as one phase and it's two, I mean, you just,
You end up fixing the whole.
you end up,
But-
right, and I just wanna make
you're-
sure that we have a definitive end.
Yes, sir. But your original question, Mr. Lawing had the exact same questions for me and
Okay.
pelted me with them for a while until I finally wrote them down and sent them to legal and got their concurrence on it. And so when we look at a drainage project and we talk about, there's need all across the county. This is probably one of the longest standing drainage issues that I'm aware of. This has been going on since the 90s, 80s, And so this is meant to fix, it's very rare you get to fix a drainage problem, but this is meant to fix a drainage problem in the long term. But when we look at them, when we look at a drainage problem, first and foremost, does it impact public right of way? Is there a public issue that is solved? Yes. Is it an issue that is too big for individual property owners to solve?
Yeah,
Yes.
runs over
Right.
multiple properties.
That's right, yeah.
Requires coordination.
And part of the issue with this, that you have these long-standing issues that have been going on for decades, and part of the problem is that the county really, no offense to previous administrations or anything, but they haven't really stepped up to the plate to fix it. And so what's happened is, in the absence of that, individual property owners have tried to correct their own drainage issues.
And that just
It made
makes
it
it
worse,
worse.
it made it.
I'm gonna dump it into your.
And so we're basically, we're ripping a lot of that stuff out, ripping all that stuff out and fixing it.
Can
All right.
can I make one clarification for the minutes? We're not improving private property. We were working on it, but we're working on it for stormwater. There's a big difference. We
I
can't
get it.
improve, we can't improve private property for
I
citizens.
used bad verbiage, but Mr. Klein,
And Josh explained it really well to me when we walked the job. We spent an hour and a half out there. He explained the hollows and then the project up above it. There was barely a planning and engineering department. Maybe there wasn't one when the hollows was built.
There was no such thing.
And so the design was so bad that right out the chute, they had problems. And it has just gotten worse and worse as people have tried to rectify the
And
problem.
then Somerset Downs upstream, which is a very large project.
just
It's-
because
it's in a lot of
we're
work.
trying.
Yeah, I just want the public
Any
to
other
hear this
questions?
on record.
David Josh, in
Thank you, sir.
reality, is the one that set up the planning department. There wasn't really a true department for it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead
There's a
and,
few pieces here and there.
I'm gonna go ahead and move us, back into order here. We have a motion on the floor. The motion was to move.
It'll need to go to the full commission,
Uh,
between major categories.
So do I need to have?
It's not any new money, it's just because it's between.
Do I
major
need to have,
categories.
wait a second reading?
No, because it's not a new appropriation, you need to send it
So I
to
have a
commission.
motion and a second for a question on it.
I have one question. The EMS monies that are going from capital back to the ARPA,
Yes, sir.
what projects are those?
That's your construction of the, is it the Westmoreland?
That's the Westmoreland.
It's the Westmoreland, so we've got the construction of the building and putting all the stuff in there.
It's not
So,
material.
there's a couple of things that's very important here, David. If you notice these numbers, it means we can allocate more money back and over to, if we need to revenue replacement, which is restricted. And we've also spent money here, that if, say, one of these projects we were challenged on, we could technically move it over into here. So we did that for a particular reason. We wrapped the project because if the feds challenged us on any of our expenses, we have other allowable expenses that can move. That's why we set it up this way. And also if we run into a problem such as this.
Any other questions on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
So go to the full board.
Just note, for the record that Mr. Lambert was not here on that vote, but we still have,
It's just the majority presence.
yeah, we're fine. Yeah, but it's majority present.
It's majority present.
Present with
Yeah.
included.
As long as you have a
That's
majority,
fine.
majority
You're talking
present.
about the waiving?
The vote,
The votes.
majority present.
Yeah, it's,
Majority
I
present.
just wanted to make sure, because he's listed, I mean, this is really just for minutes. He had stepped out. It's not,
Okay.
doesn't matter. All right, I don't think you have anything more.
That's the end of my
All
report,
right,
Mr.
so
Chairman.
we'll move on here. I have a quick update on the city of Gallatin. I owe an email, this is my fault. I asked last week, Mr. Lawing, for you to send me an email with the contract signatures, which we have for the improvements to the road.
It's already
around the
started
garage.
today.
We've already
Frankly, it started today.
It started today.
So and the reason I asked for those, and Mr. Hyde, this goes all the way back 3 months ago, I am sending these in an email to Ms. Brown. I have called Ms. Brown and spoken with her about these. I expect that we will be receiving our money forthwith after we deliver these And if we don't, then we can
I'll
have
believe it when I see it.
other discussions.
So you keeping it
All right, we'll just leave that on old business. I have a due out to send an email. Millersville Library, go
Let
ahead.
me clarify that one, sir.
Yeah.
You had 6949, you did some transfers at the top, they still need $1,947. They're asking for it from unassigned fund balance. Looking through their budget, it's gonna be very difficult for them to find the remaining, and we all know what this is for. It's for health insurance changes, so I would
Motion to
recommend that you
approve.
approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Are you waiting a second since it's
Yeah, I'm good with that.
do that. Do we need to wait for Dylan?
Yeah, we'll wait for
Wanna take a
Mr.
break?
We'll do a 5-minute break. 5-minute break. So that's why I asked that question earlier.
But now it's relevant.
Yeah, now.
Matt?
Yeah, let's turn that back on. We wouldn't want to be breaking any sunshine laws.
So we're voting to waive.
So I'm taking a vote to pass the additional $1,947 from Millersville Library and waiving the second reading. That's my motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. The election commission budget issues. Mr. Long, I'm gonna happily hand this one to you.
And I think we've discussed this particular item. Can we put it up on the screen, page 55?
We've beaten this one heavily, but,
And does anybody need me to go over the analysis on the election commission workers again?
okay.
Does everybody understand completely the comparisons we made? I received an email, and I think I forwarded it to you, Mr. Shove, from Miss Ashley, that she wasn't planning to be here. She wasn't sure she needed to be. It may be at this point, because we're getting toward the end of the fiscal year, you may want to send an invitation for her to come and discuss this, because at this rate, we're going to be at the end of the year with all these exceeding budgets.
Have we, so I have a question. So we're exceeding budgets, but have all the workers been paid?
Yes. They've been paid.
So this, I mean,
Do you remember there was
I'm with you.
the,
Haven't we asked her to come before?
we have.
Yeah.
well, the thing is, you guys
I'm just
remember,
confused when she said she wasn't sure she
If
could
you-
be here.
To be fair to her, we did not, I tried to get her to come to the last one, but she did have or to the last budget hearing, but she was,
On Thursday.
right, but
Got it.
she was, they were in a meeting with the state.
Sure.
She needed to be in, so that's
I was just, got it.
that was not a,
Where
She said
are
she's
we
not
with
on
my recommendation, that I made the other day of budget about auditing?
so we took that to, we discussed it in the audit committee, and I believe we had what did we do?
there was a lot of
It
discussion,
was to
but
have a representative.
From
I
the
thought
state.
you were going to work on getting it together, to have a representative of the comptroller's office.
So we were gonna
and,
request that a comptroller
a
come here, but
representative of the Secretary of State's office to come and meet with us about the.
it wasn't, I don't think
That
I was
was audit.
supposed to send that.
That
I
was
think
audit.
it was the request was for the
That's
mayor
not
to
tie
do
into
that.
what we're wanting to do here with another meeting.
it was a
I didn't
thought.
know who all needed to be here.
So.
There was a request for the comptroller, and I think the
And the
secretary of
secretary,
state.
a representative from the Secretary of State's, but it wasn't for me to do it. I believe and I'd have to go back in the minutes. I believe that it was, who did we pin that hat? I'm happy to do it, but I thought we pinned the hat on the mayor on that one.
It was you.
That meeting,
Was it me? Or if it was me, I'm happy to do it.
that meeting
I can't recall, I'm not
was
gonna say
the
for sure.
audit chairman working with the law director.
Okay, so it wasn't me. I didn't think,
The meeting that Mr. Hyde is referring to with those two individuals was the audit.
So, we said that the legal department would set the meeting.
The legal department was to reach out to both of those entities and then let me know, we can try to pinpoint a date that makes sense.
What people from these entities, I'm not even clear on who needs to come. Somebody from the state election commission, or?
We talked about it in the meeting.
we talked about it. It was, this part I recall, it was somebody from the Secretary of State's office, somebody from the comptroller.
Correct.
No, and we were supposed to send I know that as a group, we were supposed to send a request to find timing. and that we were gonna set a date for that based on when their availability was. I just did not think it was me that was supposed to do
It
it.
was Don. It was
Okay.
My recommended.
whoever the audit chairman is.
So,
Could I recommend maybe at the next budget committee meeting, divide them to it? Because you really need to
well,
look
we
at
need,
this budget.
what we decided then, and I don't think we need to make any changes here, was to send for you to send that request to find out their,
Just simply somebody from the Secretary of State.
and somebody from the.
That's a pretty big entity.
A representative from the Secretary of State's office who has an understanding, we don't know who they are, who has an understanding of, election, the operations of.
Operations and fiscal management
Of,
the
of
election
local, of
commission
county
office.
level election operations.
Okay, wouldn't that be the state election commission that would be involved in that, or, I just don't know, that's
We
why I'm
didn't, well,
asking.
we didn't know.
Okay,
And so we're
I'll
giving,
get
we're,
somebody here. Do we have a date in mind
we were
to
asking,
work with?
we were asking them for their availability within, I think,
Yeah.
gave ourselves like a month.
Could you try to invite them maybe to the next budget committee meeting, that way you could discuss it before you exceed your budget, because we're
We,
approaching.
as
the
part of it,
end
here,
About
I'll make a
June
motion,
9th?
I'll make a motion just to make it super clear.
Really, let me just
Go
clarify.
ahead.
It does make more sense, I think, where some of the confusion is it was decided during the audit committee, but it makes more sense for them to come for the budget committee
But that's
questions.
fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
so
we,
that's where they're sort of.
we can make a
overlap.
suggestion of the next, which we haven't set a date yet for, but we can give them we can look ahead what that Monday would be.
You do it at a regular budget.
We do it at our
Just-
next regular
just-
budget meeting,
just
just
ask them
request that
about
they
the
can
12th.
come
The
for that.
regular budget meeting is June 9th.
The regular budget meeting, not the next,
Oh.
not the,
Okay, yeah.
Not the 12th.
So shoot for the
shoot
9th.
for the
Yeah,
ninth.
let's do
That'd
that.
give them quite a bit of time to be able to check the availability.
And I've also got GNRC coming at that same meeting.
Fine with me.
Okay.
Well, remember that one. We'll just have a, go ahead, Mr. Becker.
Well, I was just pointing out there.
Go ahead.
I just want to remind those members on the audit committee, the next audit committee, scheduled meeting was going to be based on when they said they could meet.
Mhm.
That was supposed to be reached out, and then we were gonna set the next meeting.
That,
To try to have it before budget.
You're right, but what Mr. Long was stating was, I think, more efficient, and so we're kind of overriding that a little bit.
So
They
you're just
can
gonna
come here,
undercut the audit committee on that?
we're just gonna try to bring them to budget, because it's.
Could you invite the audit
quicker.
committee?
We can have an audit committee concurrently.
Yeah, there's-
Invite the audit committee into the budget and have a joint meeting
Yeah,
at
we
the
can-
say, beginning of
We
it.
can do it that way too.
You know, you do joint meetings all
We
the
just
time.
need
You
a
can do
time.
joint meeting.
We just need a time, and they may not be able to make that time. So we're gonna suggest it, and if they can meet it, then we'll have a concurrent meeting, and we'll just combine audit and budget the same way we do education and budget when we do the education budget.
For the first half of
Because
the
there's
year.
some things in audit that could go in executive session possibly, and other members wouldn't be allowed to go in. Not even commissioners, per audit committee rules.
Well, then we could carve those out if needed. I mean, it would be, we would be able to manage it. And then, again, they may not be able to, at the end of the day, strategically, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get them here within a month. And we're gonna giving them a target date, if they can make that, then we will find a way to work around it. If they can't make that, then we'll schedule another audit meeting. We'll just do it that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, there's more people on audit committee there, I just wanted to make sure you guys remember that.
Yeah, I did. That's why when Mr. Hyde suggested that it was my task. I didn't remember it being my task. I actually thought it was the mayor, but you were right. It was you in the law department. Anyway, we have an action here. I don't know that there's anything that we need to take. Any other item? I mean, that's really our
On
next step.
election, no, sir.
Okay, so let's, anything else that we want to do on election? We have our next steps, we know what we're doing. Okay, general sessions, $50,000 for bond, from fund balance to juvenile detention. This is a second reading, I think this.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Request from financial management to approve up to $60,000, from unassigned fund balance for the finance director search. I'll move for approval. I may have.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this one? I'll get to you. I just have one question for them.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and, you know, Mr. Beggar had mentioned that it seemed high. From my memory of headhunters, it is high, but I don't know, this is a whole different animal, getting a finance director for
I was
a county.
gonna ask, do you have any insight into?
We talked in financial management, we had one of the members say that he had reached out and it was 30%. I have sent a couple emails, really haven't heard anything back from those recruiting firms. Actually, a while back, so I need to reach out to different ones.
Was this, Mr. Kerr who said that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But
I mean, he would
but
know.
another
He's-
point I want to make here is, I believe it shows this under finance, but the question is, in reality, the choice is the financial management committee or the mayor, and I'm not sure, at this point, we've really determined who's going to contact the recruitment firm. There is that arc, so do we really want to move forward at this time?
I would
Mr. Hyde, go ahead.
I would make a suggestion that we move forward. I clearly believe this is a 1981 decision, and financial management, in my opinion, should proceed forward regardless of anything else in finding someone for this position.
Mr. Becker, then.
Yeah, the county currently does not have a 1981 financial management committee.
Correct.
So there is no financial management committee that's asking this then.
It was the 2012 committee, you're correct.
Correct. So if it's under 1981, then we just need to table it for now.
Mr. Klein.
I just wanted to make sure that the 60,000 was up to 60, not
Yeah,
to
it
exceed
says,
60.
that's what it says, up to, so
Okay.
we don't have to use all that. I think my opinion is that whether it's 1981 or 2012, we need to get the ball moving. Could we wait a little while? Probably, but I don't see there's any reason to. From the citizens' comments earlier, yes, this is maybe a little bit high, but if Mr. Kerr has been in this business for many years, and it's an up to, so I'm comfortable with it. Any other questions on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
One no. Okay,
It will come back next month for the second.
we're gonna come back next month for the second. Health Department,
Let me give you an update of where we're at on the health department.
okay.
We have the bids back right now. We're evaluating the bids. The low bid we have is $2,229,000. It is below the budgeted amount. So if this bid, after the architect gets done and we get finished evaluating it, if it does meet specs, and we'll award the contract and move forward with the health department.
Okay. Any other discussion? We don't need to take much.
No, it's just an update for the committee.
Patriot Software?
That one I'm not really involved in. It came up from another committee.
I don't.
It's to
That's
do with
where
the.
you were gonna get with Tuttle and
Oh, this
figure
is
out
I thought
analogy.
what we decided to do that ultimately was to do the 6,500 for the,
No, the last time we met, all I remember is you were gonna get with Tuttle about what he needed to get it done, or if it was
I'm
even
dropping the ball
doable.
here.
I think this came up from, is it legislative it came from? It was to do with the, properties, would it
Yeah,
come, did
it's
it come
the
through
it's the
legislative?
property
though?
assessment, and what we had on the floor, I'm just gonna make myself a note here.
We really didn't get very much details on it.
Because there was something that came up through,
I believe it was
it
legislative.
went through legislative, and I think it almost went onto the county, onto the floor, if I recall, and it was
$6,000?
It was $6,000 for, we had two options, and there was $6,000. The lesser of them was $6,000 basically for data tagged PDFs. And I know the property assessor was actually pretty happy about that.
Can I tell you
Go
one
ahead.
of the things that may be important? You guys were discussing, I believe from what I recollect, there was a discussion that maybe IT could do it. Right now, our IT director's actually upstairs because we have an item, he told me he would be there. Do you want me to go upstairs and get him?
Can we just do that real quick and just grab him? Because I actually
Okay.
spoke with him, I did speak with him about this,
I can call him or
Okay.
text
to
him.
see if he's there, and let's,
My understanding, I talked to him earlier, he is upstairs, he's waiting for his last item, so,
without objection.
Robert would be the one to know.
Without objection, I'd like to just
And I think he's listening to the tapes, so he's probably on the way anyway.
Without objection, let's just hold this and we'll move.
Okay.
Let's get some move. All right, new business, Portland Airport, grant match, $7,925.
This,
Any others, is there a second? Second, all in favor?
are you waiving the second?
Waiving the second.
Majority.
And everybody voted, everybody was, it was
What else
unanimous,
is there?
okay? So moving on to appropriations A2, finance, additional funding for trustees commission,
You want me to explain that?
$60,000. Go ahead. Mr.
Trustees commission's based on revenues and it's a percentage. Remember the graph we showed with all the extra interest earnings? You have to pay trustees commissions on that. We didn't anticipate them being as high as they are, so we think we're gonna be about $60,000 short, to cover the rest of the year.
Motion. Have a motion to approve. Is there a second on it?
We have to statutorily pay them.
We have to pay these.
Oh,
Sorry. Motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Any
Wait,
opposed?
second.
Oh, yep, I'm good to waive the second. Second is good with it, all right, the second was good with it, motion carried unanimously. $2,750, additional funding for pauper burials for unassigned fund balance. I move, we don't need to waive the second on
It's
this.
below the dollar
Yes, below.
threshold.
May I ask a question about that?
Yes, go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, where does this come from, the pauper burials?
We get we get certification, or actually it has to be a certification of a pauper, and it goes through legal before it gets to
And
us.
where do we bury them?
I believe we cremate them.
Cremate them, and then where do the remains go?
To the family. I know that because a friend of mine had to go through that.
But we've had some unclaimed issues, but, usually they deal with it at the,
EMS.
yeah.
Oh, okay, all right, that's all I wanted to know, thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Clerk.
What's a pauper? I never even heard of it.
Person who is unable to afford a burial.
Okay, okay.
So the county, we have to do something with remains, so there are statutes that require this.
Okay.
And
But but the individual has to apply for it, and they have to, basically show that they can.
Can't pay for their own funeral.
All right, motion. Is there a second on this?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Tuttle,
We're gonna
sir.
come back, for the Patriot software. Mr. Tuttle, I know you and I have spoken about this a couple times. This is, I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules. Second, all in favor? Aye. Mr. Tuttle, I know you and I have spoken about this a couple times, I think maybe last month, maybe before that, regarding the Patriot software for the, yes. So, the question that we had, and I'm gonna ask you to make a fly thing here, if you can't do it, maybe take time and send this committee an email. We received 2 quotes, back from the Patriot team. One for a considerable amount, like 30,000, yeah, something around $40,000.
Another
Which
for
was,
6,000.
and another for 6,000, that was for, I think, it was PDFs that had, like a metadata tag on them.
Yes, sir.
That let them be searchable, which I think, personally, I think both of those are a bit high. But, recognizing that they, without going to court, which would be even more expensive, they technically met the confines of their contract. How many hours do you think it would be for you or your team's time, like man hours to parse that? Or if you were to try to outsource it to parse the data that we have? What that cost would be?
If we tried to outsource it, I think it's gonna be a little more expensive than the 6,000 you can quote for a PDF system.
Okay.
As far as doing it in-house, it's undoable, we just need to know what fields we're looking for. Unfortunately, no one knows exactly what
So
we're
we
looking
would-
for inside the data.
Yeah, so it would be, you'd have to try to get from the tax assessor's office which one were relevant, you'd have to build a database, and then you'd have to stack that in there.
now he's saying he don't know the database fields of what they are. But you got data, you got all these tables,
It's
you don't know what they mean.
Well, it's similar to what Commissioner Shuff's saying, we need for
Somebody
to let us know.
You can
what
look at
we're
all the
digging through.
tables and see, but you don't contextually know what those tables mean.
Correct, until we pull.
And you'd have to, so it would be
Right.
all right, so like in your estimate, if you were to try to get somebody to outsource, because that's a man-hour type thing, it's either, more than $6,000 worth of our man hours that you could be doing something else, or it's $6,000, more than $6,000 that we would have to contract it out. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any other questions for Mr. Tuttle? Because I'm going to have it moved. Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, given that, I'm going to move to spend the $6,000 for the Metatag PDFs. That's my motion.
Second.
And I'm going to waive the second reading for that. Is the second good with that?
Yes.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we've done that one. Great. Moving forward, thank you, Ms. Tuttle. You want to stay and enjoy the rest of the session?
The last parts.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, Brown House, 20, this is,
You missed
oh,
item C.
sorry, Financial Management Committee request to correct payroll holdback issue. Go ahead.
Let me explain this one. This is the same one we've discussed. You have about 180 employees that, for instance, when they're paid next Friday, they're paid through Friday. So on Kronos, we cannot technically do, you need a holdback. And the question being, my initial one was talking to, I think, a couple of years ago, Rutherford County and the state. They gave the employees a week to do the holdback, but the cost has been the concern. I went back and reevaluated. I think you could potentially do it by doing a prepaid on the balance sheet, a little more complicated, but when the employees leave, we would try to recapture it. We may have to pay part of it. So that you can approve this, or this is some financial management, or you can send it back for us to explore a cheaper option.
What's the total?
311.
311,000. And as I'm saying,
And this is a one-time, right?
it's one time, but the thing is, we're not to the point that we're moving forward with that. We're on EMS and sheriff right now, so after budget, if you want me to explore it with the prepayment, I'll be more than happy to. Right now, we're
What's the benefit?
Well, if you do the 311, what you're gonna do, if you do the 311, basically we're gonna dummy in a week and give everybody a week, and we'll give you that whole back. What we could do is dummy in the week, and we can put it on our balance sheet as a prepayment and track those employees as they leave and try to recapture it. Because if they have a paid out payroll or vacation or something.
Yeah, no, I get it. You're gonna try to.
And you wouldn't have to do this, potentially. It's a little more work. We can look into that, but I need to explore.
How much are we gonna save for, again, I'm thinking like man hours here, because on your time, right? Same question.
Well, it'll be on the prepayment. We will just look for employees hired from a certain date, take it out of it.
And you would just do that kind of on a rolling basis?
On a rolling as they leave. You're probably gonna have some of them you can't recover, and they'll be going to the
Yeah,
commission.
so I guess my question is, how much would you?
Can't tell, but you could save anywhere from 90% down to 20.
All right.
I mean, it's all over it's court if we recapture. Most of the time when
So,
employees
all right,
leave,
well, if you think you can
they've
catch up
got
90%,
payout.
then I'm
They've
gonna
got payout
make a
vacation.
motion for the second option that you recapture on a
I'll
current basis.
second that.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on this one? Go ahead.
What does that do? Is it still the 311?
It would be, well, what I'm saying, instead of doing this, Mr. Becker, what we could do, right now, is leave it alone, but the employees that are on Kronos, we'd go in and basically, if you guys approve and send it back to financial, we'd dummy in a week. We would put that week as prepaid payroll on the balance sheet. When an employee quits, that's, in this group, because it's only about 180 of our employees out of about 1,100, that doesn't have the payroll, if they're in this particular department and hired before a certain day, we would go look
do a
on the
true-up.
prepayment. So when you quit, if you, as a full-time employee, had to pay out for vacation or paid, we would deduct what we could out of it. If you don't have vacation or something else and you quit, we can't capture it. So instead of this, we'll be bringing it to you in a rolling basis. We have to do a little more work, but it would be significantly less cost, but it'll be later.
But then going forward, you would actually get paid for the actual time.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
that will be fixed, but
Yeah.
these folks, this 180
So-
some people, we owe them some amount.
So what I would recommend, if you're not gonna do this, is to do a resolution that so basically to this, a resolution, because we don't wanna get in the middle of it. The employees hired after a certain day automatically have to have a holdback. That the finance will basically track these, and we'll make every attempt to recover these when people quit. If it's not recovered, finance will bring it forward to you, but we don't wanna be held responsible for the amount
That's
that's
fine.
eventually.
So I will make a motion to do exactly that. My motion, I'll amend it to do exactly that, because that's more specific.
Or send it back to financial management to look at that.
Well, do we need to send it back to financial management?
Not
Can we just-
necessarily.
Let's just do it here.
Okay.
I'm fine with doing it here. Let's go ahead and move that ball forward. There's no reason to ping pong this thing back.
Right.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Now we're on the Brown House. 25, and again, maybe I'm missing this. I thought we passed this all the way.
This is an additional amount.
Oh, an additional amount,
Yeah.
okay, I'll entertain a motion. for
Motion
discussion.
to approve.
Okay, motion to approve, I'll second it, but I wanna,
Yeah, okay.
before voting, I wanna understand what's
Okay,
happening.
yeah.
Go ahead.
What happened is I went out there with Chris Coker, who's the specialist in historic homes. And as usually happens, so many things that we did not expect to see, we found out. And there was a ton of HVAC equipment under the house. It appears that the log cabin has been jacked up. The old floor was removed, maybe because it had rot. They built a new floor. But then we looked back under the newer area of the house and found out that it had hand-hewn log beams and an original floor that was actually 1-inch thick material, unlike the oldest part of the house. And so what happened is in an 8.5-hour day, we didn't get everything done. And he's actually going out there tomorrow to finish up what he can. One of the problems is it's so hard to get to it, especially when it rains, because there's no real driveway to it. But the long and the short of it was we did not hire Derry Berry to remove the HVAC equipment, so that we saved $1,400 or something there. I'm obviously working for free, but he's spending more hours out there than originally anticipated. So we need a little more money to finish the job, because what a full understanding of the building will determine is what do we want to keep of the house and what do we
So I
want to
want to get him on the queue here.
Okay.
I have questions for the law director and for you, Mr. Klein. So for the law director, I guess first for you, with this, now that he's spent 8 hours on the premises, does he expect anything like this 25, kind of a similar question that I had for Mr. Sutton, I thought earlier, right? Like, is this gonna be it? Is he gonna be able to, or we're gonna get
Yeah,
in
and
there?
he does not expect to use the 2,500.
Okay.
We just threw that number out to cover it.
Mr. Sutton, my question to you is, are we running into, are there any caps here where we, and I know there are caps, but are we still under caps where we would have to bid out some such services?
We're fine.
We're fine, okay. So my question back to you, Mr. Klein, is this. Are there any preliminary assessments? I mean, you said it had been kind of jacked up, from the foundation. I guess, are there any assessments to date that would make any further assessments moot? Like, is the house basically unserviceable, or is it serviceable? What are his preliminary assessments?
His preliminary assessments were the logs were in great shape. One of the things he's gonna do tomorrow is knock out some of the brick veneer on the outside to assess the outside of the logs. We think they're in good shape. This will guarantee it. And then what he's gonna do is crawl under the back of the house. It started raining on us.
Okay.
And so we couldn't get in underneath the kitchen area, which we thought was newer than maybe it is. And from the roof structure, it looks like everything from the dining room back to the end is a second phase of the house that came very early because it's hand-hewn logs.
Mr. Mansfield.
Just the executive summary. Basically, what he was saying is there's $500 left of the original appropriation still of time, basically, in estimated time. But to our charge in general operations is like we want to have options.
Okay.
A, B, C. Like, since they discovered this house in different aspects and different parts, like in some, it's all original, but then you've had stuff modifications. But there's how big or small do we want this footprint to be of what was original, what could be or what could not. So we want options. We want them now.
Okay.
And so this is a part of doing that outside. He just needs. He's like, well, it's going to take a little bit more. So he's going to do the work, but this is so that we can get, because what's being done now has to be done regardless.
Okay.
We're just doing it in small steps so that we can get quotes to bring to the commission. And like, we're meeting as an ad hoc next week, because he's going to have the options for us that we can then bring forward in June. Like, here's what these are options that we can move forward with, and that the public can see and the commission can see. But this is a part of that remediation. But it's again, it's money that's gonna be used at some point for this building to do what's being done. We were just hoping he could do it for $2,500, so basically, it's up to, I don't think he's gonna need it. Again, he has 500 left of the original 2,000, but he's going out there tomorrow, weather permitting, and just pulling up that outside, a little bit more poking through the brick where it's already been exposed to see the beam, so because in order for him to give us an estimate,
needs to see it.
we've got to see it,
I get
so
it.
it's an inspection.
And he's also gonna crawl under the house.
Got it.
In
All
the
right.
back
I just-
portion. that-
Because after he pulls out all that ductwork, they could,
Right.
it's still part of that, but it's like, being so voluminous as far as that ductwork and knowing the original.
Yeah, he
second
couldn't, he
floor.
couldn't see.
We couldn't get to it.
I get it. No, I understand. I've been
It's
under
already
Alex
built
for a
back.
weekend. Mr. Lambert?
I just know, is that weather depending? I think that's what I heard, just heard fishermen.
Yeah, because he doesn't
I just
want.
looked at the weather and I know it's supposed to rain all week, so
Yeah,
I just didn't
it-
know if he was gonna charge us just for driving out there and turn around and driving.
No, he won't do that. He'll only charge for work. He doesn't charge for the trip
Got
to it.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, aye.
Aye.
Did you have a question? I didn't see
I
it in
didn't, that's fine. It's no big.
Okay. Did anybody vote? I'm gonna take this vote again just because it was a
Actually,
lot.
so let me ask a question.
Go ahead.
So we originally approved $2,000.
Yes, correct. Wow.
Man, sorry.
You asked a question, Jared.
So $2,000. So I know it's not
2015, Joe.
Okay. So I know it's not big, like, the whole scheme of things, not a huge amount, but percentage wise, we're now coming back and asking for 2,500. I don't understand why we were off the mark on the first request so much, percentage wise.
We had expectations, and I asked him to not get rid of the HVAC equipment because Commissioner Boyd said, well, maybe we'll need it, maybe we will, probably we won't, but we can leave it right there. So we went out there, and he kind of has a day rate, and so he used up all but $500 of it. And just because we weren't sure he could find out everything that he needed to find out, we added another 2,500. He does not expect to use it. I do not expect him to use it. He just needs to look at the bricks on the pull out the bricks, look at the logs from the outside in a couple of different spots, and then climb under the back area of the house that we thought was newer than it is. We think it's now, we're thinking it's pretty old. And so what he discovers then will determine what the ad hoc will decide on, well, what should we keep? Should we just keep the log cabin portion of the house? Or should we keep the back because it was done within 20 years of the construction of the house? We just don't know until we know all of the facts of the history. He's been doing some studying on the framing techniques used in the back portion of the house. They're different than anything I'd ever seen. They look like maybe they were done in Germany or something. It's very, very interesting to see. But that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to identify the age of everything. And once he crawls underneath the house in the back portion, he will know that. And obviously pulling out the bricks, he'll be able to see the quality of the logs on the outside. And in the inside, they're gorgeous.
But if I understand right, the numbers, it's taking him more than double the amount of time he
Well,
originally thought.
understand that was just a dollar amount we threw at it. He does not expect to need that 2,500 extra dollars.
Okay.
And the change, because I asked, a lot of that had to do with the HVAC and the positioning of the HVAC, which he didn't know.
Right.
He was not able to access certain parts as
We
easily.
couldn't get under
as he
the house.
expected to. I think that's the.
We had to tear out the HVAC supply and return just to get under the house.
Yeah, that was in terms of the physical thing that happened, I think that's what, if you're just thinking time there, that's what took the extra time physically. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Is that
we
what you're
spent a
saying?
lot of time tearing out that
All right.
ductwork.
Any other discussion on it? Mr. Becker, did that answer your question?
That's good enough.
All right, I'm gonna take this vote again. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, Millersville EMS, $50,000 to renovate 2 rooms. This is from Jen Ox.
Motion to approve.
Second, any discussion on this?
Is this a county building or
This is theirs.
This is their building.
We're gonna have an MOU with them?
Yeah.
That's gonna be on commission.
Okay.
So there,
What I explained earlier is our policies generally for capital $7,500 and capital something we can capitalize. But the rule that we follow from GASB, which is actually going to determine, says it just has to be basically, it doesn't necessarily have to be capitalized.
right, but.
So this would qualify.
Right, but we do have an MOU, so here's what I'll do. I would like to amend the motion just to make it contingent on approval of that MOU. Is it, or is this?
Yeah,
you're good with that?
I will do that, yeah,
Okay.
because we can't do it without
So
approval of the MOU.
So the motion is to approve this contingent on
of-
approval of an MOU
Wait a
between
second.
us and
Funding local capital projects.
funding from local capital. Mr. Beckett, Mr. Beckwell.
What's the, didn't we approve $50,000 for them to do something?
No, that was for, to extend our the trailer that we had out there.
Trailer.
Yeah, we had to, because we were.
When is that lease?
Wasn't there some architectural?
Uh,
There's architectural in this too.
Yeah, this is architectural's 13-2.
Right. You already did some architectural out there though.
Well,
But that wasn't the $50,000.
that was a different architect.
That was not that.
So you're using a different architect?
Yeah.
So we did, and let's step through the things which I know that we've spent money on, but I don't know the exact amounts. But we spent money on an architect because we needed to do that. So there was some spent, but it wasn't $50,000. And I want to say it was like $38,000, something like that.
No, it was
I can get you the number.
No, not for the architect.
Oh.
For the trailer.
The trailers.
The trailer was.
The low 30s.
It was $30-something thousand dollars.
30.
That, I think, is what you're thinking of, Mr. Becker.
Okay, so then what are these two rooms for?
Go ahead, Mr. Klein.
Okay, there are two living or sleeping quarters that do not pass building code because they don't have a second ingress egress.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got an architect who did an assessment of the building, and there's carbon monoxide analyzers, and there's 1 hour walls and 1 hour doors, but primarily there needs to be a window or a door cut out the back of each of those building rooms. And so this $50,000 is to pay for the architecture, which we already have a locked-in price of $13,200, and then the work to be done. It's not a lot of work, and this will allow us to get rid of the trailer and move our EMS guys back in, and to a point, and part of the amendment of the MOU was they have to give us 12 months notice, not 30 days, that we have to move out. And so there were a couple other minor changes to the MOU. Provided they accept that MOU, then we'll be able, with the allocation of this money, to go ahead and hire the architect, have him do the designs, bid it out, get a contractor to do the work and be done with it.
And your last sentence, or the last part you're saying, and be done with it. So will this put this behind us?
This will put this behind us. And what the city of Millersville came back and told us is that ultimately they think they're gonna grow so much that they need to have 24-hour round-the-clock firemen there. And at that point, they will want those two sleeping quarters back. But until that time, we will be able to stay in there. It could be 2 years, it could be 5 years, it could be never. We don't know, and neither do they.
Do we want to give them 50 for 2 years though?
Huh?
You really want to give them 50,000 for 2 years?
Well, we just spent $35,000 on a trailer for 1 year.
That's true.
10 months.
10 months, and if we bought that trailer, it would cost us about $35,000. So it seems like we would save money at this point if we do.
Here's the thing.
Motion to approve.
Second, and here's what I'm going to say. We gave, and I was happy, and Mr. Bricker, I think you and I both voted for it. We've given funds to help Hendersonville with water projects. We've given funds. Occasionally, we do stuff to help out different cities, and $50,000 for help. I'm happy to do it. At least sometimes we just do that as a county. Any other discussion on this one? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. All right, this next one, and I apologize. Did we need to?
Did you waive the second?
So,
$50,000.
Mr.
Wait a second.
Let's vote again. I'm good with the second. Second good with it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
And the
So let's-
contingency was still in there, right?
Contingency.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, the MOU.
So let's do this. Mr. Long and I were just having a bit of a sidebar, apologize for it, regarding the architect fees for the old courtroom. Mr. Long, I'll hand it to you, but I think at the end of the day, we have a few options here. I'll just entertain a motion. I'm gonna move to approve this, but there's gonna be a lot of discussion. Is there a second? Motion and a second? Okay, Mr. Long.
My number one first understanding is that you've allocated the spaces as the commission.
That is correct.
Okay, so has it been to Gen Op in any other way at this point, David?
We approved the architecture
Okay, so
fee.
here's what I think, and there's been discussions, 132s in this year from opioid, 500 for next year, so I think the next move would be before you appropriate it tonight, that I have Dustin or Scott from my office to go ahead and get a quote from an architect of what it would actually cost. I think our next step, we can bring it back and actually talk.
Can't we just do an up to?
They're estimating 45,000. We're looking, we think the architect's potentially gonna be more. We don't know the exact cost. We can go, at this point, it may be the best thing for, have Scott to reach out to the judge, clarify anything on this, and go ahead and reach out to an architect.
So
and
if
come
we,
back.
well, I mean, maybe the right thing to do is appropriate an up to amount, kind of similar to what we did for the motion at the beginning of the day that I made, an up to amount for the architect,
How about up to,
60,000?
well, what do you think it's supposed to be?
You know, maybe I misspoke.
I hate to say, but I think it's gonna be more.
This, you're talking about Judge Blanton's area?
Yes.
Okay. No, we haven't approved an architect for that.
So let's, because you do have your rules on.
Here's what I'll do, because that way we can
Get the
structure-
quote and bring it back.
Well, let's do this.
Yeah, there's nothing for them to approve.
What I would, because I don't think this steps on anybody here. We
The
can approve-
commission approved him getting the space.
Right.
And the balance.
But they also approved a finance policy for construction projects. Right now, the number one thing that would probably get us on the policy is I have Scott or Dustin reach out to the judge, find out what he's exactly wanting, get a quote on the architect, and bring this plan and the architect to Gen Ops this month and bring back the appropriation request next month. We'll know the exact dollars, they're pretty close. Right now, we're kind of, they're saying 45,000.
I don't want to have, I get it, I don't want to, but we could also do it up to, that way we can.
But if it ends up being short.
Well, that's true, then we actually shoot
But
ourselves.
honestly, I think you're just
That's
shooting
fine.
in the wind
That's-
right now.
that If we come up short.
Motion to defer.
All right.
So what I'll do is I'll
Motion
send
and a
two
second.
people, I'll send it to Gen Ops. Send it
All
to
right,
Gen
well,
Ops.
yeah, well, two things. One, we want to do that, and we also want to get want to try to get an actual quote.
We'll send it up to finance, we'll help them
Yeah.
prepare the
All
plan
right.
per policy. to
We have a
go to Gen
motion and a
Ops.
second. Go ahead, Ms. Janone.
Doing opioid money, by doing that, are we in jeopardy though of running out of time?
Now, what I was talking to them, you have and I talked to Dustin yesterday, you have actually I talked to him today, sorry. You have 132,000 that you've currently appropriated to Recovery Court Inc. grants, what it says. And then you have 500,000 for next year that makes this 632.
Right, we did that.
So if we're gonna pay it from there, how about if you approve that we go ahead and send it to Gen Ops with the appropriation this coming month? That's about as quick as you're gonna get it anyway.
With the appropriate.
Basically, what I'll do is I'll contact, in the morning, Dustin and Scott, my two project managers, have them to reach out to the judge, find out exactly what he wants, contact architects, and have a plan to Gen Ops this month, the way this will be back here next
All right,
month.
that's fine.
Waive
That's
the second and
motion.
run it forward.
That's basically the motion that's on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
They don't meet this coming month,
all right.
for this coming month.
All right, so, we're taking care of that one. Health Department, $1,000.
So moved.
Motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? EMS, 51,000.
Let me tell you what that
You
is.
go ahead.
The state has given them a training supplement. They do not pay the Social Security Medicare on that, oddly enough. We're asking to approve the revenue flowing through and the payments for the supplement plus the Social Security Medicare. And to waive,
Motion, second.
and to waive the second.
How much
Are you waiting for the
is the
second?
total?
Motion, second
Are you
good
good
with
with
that?
waiting a second?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Klein.
How much is the total, David?
It's 51,200 for the grant and 39,18 local to cover the Social Security Medicare.
So it's 3,918 from unassigned fund balance.
Yeah,
Social
so
Security Medicare.
55,000
Yes.
roughly, okay.
Right about.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. You can waive the second reading. Okay, EMS Meraki license, how much was this?
Motion to group and approve
Motion
one
to
and
approve,
two.
approve, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
We may want to give a thank you for our IT director. He stayed around this whole time and talked about that contract, if you wanted him to. Now, that's the nice feeling.
Hey,
I would